Recently, I made a claim about what the VR industry needs to succeed, and this game might just prove it. In previous videos, I have said that the future success of virtual reality gaming depends on one thing: hybrid games. Games that can bridge the gap between the flat screen and VR player base, that take advantage of the broader gaming audience to increase potential sales to fund bigger and better VR projects. Well, a little game called The Midnight Walk is attempting to do just that, and it ultimately could prove to the industry that this idea works. Moonhood Studio is a team of less than 50 people, and somehow they made a game that looks just as good as a multi-million-dollar Tim Burton movie. How exactly did they achieve this? Well, according to the co-founder of the studio, it was actually a bit easier than you might think. That's because the characters and environments were all hand-sculpted out of clay, and then scanned into Unreal Engine 5 as 3D models, and finally animated digitally to look like stop motion. But I'm guessing there was actually another benefit to them scanning everything into Unreal Engine 5. You see, Unreal Engine is known for having a whole suite of pre-built tools and blueprints that theoretically makes developing multi-platform and XR games much more streamlined. Now, I don't know for sure how much they used these tools and how much they had to build from scratch, but what I do know is that a while ago, someone named Praydog created a mod that can convert basically any Unreal Engine game into VR, so there must be something about that game engine that makes VR conversion much simpler. So it seems like it was a smart move from the beginning to develop this game in this particular engine, but I'm not really here to talk about how they did it. I'm much more interested in why. Why does this benefit from being a hybrid game? Why does this game still fall short in some VR aspects? And why does this game have such an amazing ending that is probably worth experiencing regardless? You see, at first glance, The Midnight Walk is just a typical indie PS5 or PC game with a unique claymation art style. But what I find even cooler than these hand-sculpted characters is that at any point you can decide to play in VR with full motion controls. Seeing the true scale of this world and being fully immersed is by far the best way to play. Whoa. You're huge. Did you see that, buddy? But let's say you want to keep progressing the story but don't have time to get sucked into a whole VR session. Well, just pause the game, switch over to flat screen mode, and continue right where you left off. This hybrid approach allows the player to choose their level of immersion at any given time, which sure is nice if you have access to both, but another benefit to this type of game is how it bridges the gap between VR gamers and non-VR gamers. The two sides of the gaming community are reacting to the same game at the same time, because it's not like a Skyrim VR situation where the VR port comes out years after the original release. And with a game so focused on storytelling, those reactions are vital to the experience. I'll explain what I mean by that later on since there are some minor spoilers involved, but the true genius of this game is this hybrid approach. Moonhood Studio is comprised of talent that worked on games in the past like Ghost Giant, Lost in Random, and I'm sure many of you haven't even heard of those games, but I'm also sure at least some of you have. The truth is, games like these are what earn you a cult following, a small but loyal fan base that loves what you've created so much that they will show up to support whatever you put out next. So even though I love getting a new VR game and a studio might think VR is the right move for their game, making a VR exclusive game risks alienating those fans who would have supported them but simply don't own a VR headset, which, let's be honest, the majority of people still don't. So I think a huge benefit to this game being playable both ways is that it still can be enjoyed by the overwhelming majority of flat screen gamers while also appealing to a brand new audience that is always eager for new VR games. Put it out. I genuinely don't think I would be very interested in playing The Midnight Walk if it wasn't playable in VR, and I kinda doubt I'm the only one who feels that way. VR has introduced me to so many new games that I never would have expected to like, but ended up loving. Earlier I mentioned how this game was made in Unreal Engine, and I also mentioned how Praydog's VR Injector mod can easily convert any Unreal Engine game into VR. So some people would say that the devs wasted their time, that they should have left it to the modders to convert it to VR since they would have done it for free anyways. But in my opinion, that would be a huge mistake. The real reason why I love The Midnight Walk isn't just that it's playable in VR, it's the fact that it's playable in VR without the need for modding. No extra downloads, no tweaking settings, no setting anything extra up. In other words, it just works. And when your goal is to simply enjoy your time with a cool immersive experience, that is remarkably important. Something I saw the other day illustrates this point perfectly. I saw a TikTok of someone playing Insurgency Sandstorm in VR using PreyDog's VR mod. And there are two things I noticed. Number one, that this looks freaking awesome and now I want to play Insurgency Sandstorm even though I didn't care about it before seeing it in VR. And number two, that so many people agreed with me but had absolutely no clue how to play it. That's because technically Insurgency Sandstorm in VR doesn't actually exist until you make it. What you're seeing is gameplay of an experience that the user has created for themselves through downloading a certain game, downloading a mod, installing it, adjusting settings, and so on. Now maybe the mod is actually pretty easy to set up. Maybe there's already a preset for the settings, but regardless, it's another barrier to entry for a hobby that already has so many. So the fact that the Midnight Walk goes out of its way to provide that seamless, immersive experience is absolutely appreciated and really should be more common. But hybrid game justifications aside, is the Midnight Walk itself actually any good? Well, yeah. The less I tell you about the story, the better. It's best to go in completely blind, but all you really need to know is that you play as the Burnt One, and your goal is to protect this little source of light named Potboy as you both traverse the long dark road known as the Midnight Walk. From a gameplay sense, it's pretty safe in what it attempts to do. There are plenty of simple puzzles that involve commanding Potboy to light up specific candles, there are stealth sections that require a small amount of patience and strategy, and there are dozens of NPCs more than willing to talk your ear off if you let them. And while there are a fair amount of features that just make sense when translated to VR, such as grabbing and lighting matches, pulling open doors, placing key objects, and being able to physically handle any of the collectibles you find throughout, but there are also a few glaring oversights that you wouldn't expect from a game co-developed for VR. The first major problem I want to point out is something I personally didn't mind that much, but if you suffer from motion sickness, this could be a reason to avoid the game entirely. So, I think it's worth pointing out. The issue is that, for some reason, there are several important cutscenes throughout the game that take the camera out of your body and just move it around the scene like a regular game camera would. These moving, tracking camera shots can be completely nauseating in VR and are usually only found when modding a flat screen game into VR, so it's kind of weird that these are still in this kind of game. I'm not really sure why they couldn't just be tweaked to be stationary shots when you're playing in VR, or even stationary shots across the board and then you wouldn't have to tweak them for VR. What makes it worse is that so many of these jarring camera shifts are completely unnecessary since the things usually happening are in-world, so why not just leave the player in control of their body for this stuff? Speaking of the player body, another missed opportunity is the lack of a full one. There's this one part of the game where you come across a village full of animated heads. These NPCs specifically call out the fact that you have a body because bodies are banned there, I guess. But when you look down, you don't see that. You're just a pair of disembodied floating hands. It would add so much to the character of this game to see yourself actually playing as a sort of clay figurine. One more tiny nitpick is that you can't interact with Potboy in any cool VR way, like petting him or holding him, although you can at least feed him at certain points.
You know who this motherfucker look like, low-key? Look!
But it's not actually the gameplay that really sells this game. It's the world, the art style, the characters, and the story that truly leaves a lasting impression. Minor spoilers ahead. You see, what's so special to me about the ending of this game is how it offers you two choices. Now to me, at first, it seemed like one of these choices was the obvious good ending, so I chose that and witnessed one of the most beautiful virtual scenes I've ever seen. And I was content, ready to write this video and rant about all this game's unique qualities, but upon searching for footage of the alternate ending, I found a video that showed both, and I read a few comments that made me rethink everything. Here, even when presented with both endings, people were finding comfort and even joy in the ending that I assumed was the bad one. The final choice of this game sparked some truly meaningful discussion of this game's themes and message in a way that I haven't really seen since I played Journey. Now I have no way of knowing if these people played the game flat screen or in VR, but the beauty is that it doesn't really matter. Because it's playable both ways, the medium is no longer a barrier stifling this creative discussion. If this game was exclusively in VR, it's just a fact that not many people would get the chance to play it. And if this game wasn't in VR, I never would have either. So thank you, Moonhood Studio and Fast Travel Games, for making the Midnight Walk an amazing example of what a hybrid game can do.
And so it was that the Burnt One and a small flame took a wander down the Midnight Walk.
know the video is basically over now, but in case you're new here, hi, I'm Virtual Bro, and I'm always looking for the best VR games to recommend to you, so if you have a VR headset and never know what to play, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button. Maybe even leave a like while you're at it, maybe even make your way down to the description where you'll find my Patreon and become a supporter there like these awesome people here. Huge shout out for supporting me for so many months, even just $1 helps. That's all for now. Once again, I'm Virtual Bro, and I hope to see you next time.